In 1984, one of the most famous and iconic Cobra characters made his debut in the GI Joe toy line. From the start, Storm Shadow turned out to be a home run for Hasbro, as apparently everybody loves a ninja. But as cool as this ninja was, I actually gravitated more to another Cobra character that also made his debut the same year. Someone who, despite his rather fiery name, like Storm Shadow, also hid his face behind the full mask. A mysterious individual who is similar to the Cobra Ninja in that he would rather not be seen and just let his work speak for itself. And most importantly, a dangerous Cobra operative best described with 3 simple words. Tick, tick, boom. No one knows what Firefly's real name is or what he looks like. He is known for his work, expert in all NATO and Warsaw-packed explosives and detonators. Always places his charges in the one place that affords maximum damage. There's no question about his infiltration skills since no one has ever reported seeing him enter or leave any target area. Even Cobra Commander doesn't know much about Firefly. His fees are paid into a numbered Swiss bank account and are always payable in advance. He makes no guarantees and gives no refunds. At first glance, looking at both card art, Storm Shadow and Firefly would look somewhat similar to a little kid, since both had their faces concealed with masks. Reading into their job descriptions, another common detail is that their specialties both involved lurking in the shadows. But that's pretty much where their similarities end. These guys represent the opposite ends of the killing spectrum. Storm Shadow, being a ninja assassin, kills with silence and precision, usually focused on an individual target, while Firefly, as a saboteur, would rather blow things up with the loudest explosion and largest collateral damage possible. Even back then, all those years ago, I instantly recognized and identified Firefly as my favorite of the new batch of bad guys. Not because I enjoyed blowing things up, mind you, he just looked cool, and I really liked the name Firefly. For some reason though, I never got his original action figure, and when it came to his exposure in different media, he didn't seem to be featured as much. In the original Sunbow cartoon, Firefly made his debut in the second miniseries, The Revenge of Cobra. I do remember that really wacky scene where he made his blink and you miss it move during an impromptu makeshift game of ice hockey between the Joes and Cobra. Although I honestly can't remember him speaking much in the cartoon, it would be worth noting that he was voiced by Greg Berger, better known as the iconic voice of the Dinobot Grimlock. Me, Firefly! Kick butt! In later shows such as Resolute, he's basically relegated to a one-scene operative, usually whenever it involves a rocket launcher or some explosives. I am aware though that Firefly did have a more substantial role in the later series Sigma 6, but I never watched that show past the pilot episode, so that's all I can tell you about that. What I did watch was the 2010 series Renegades, where Firefly was the villain of the week for a single episode. In that episode, he is hired by Cobra to terrorize and later destroy a small town that is being a nuisance to Cobra, but is predictably thwarted by GI Joe in the end. For me, this was the first time an actual personality was given to Firefly. This time around voiced by Peter McNichol, Janos Poha from Ghostbusters 2, and eccentric lawyer John Cage from Ally McBeal. McNichol gave Firefly a creepier vibe as he is reimagined as a pyromaniacal arsonist who talks to fire like a lover. Weird stuff. But hey, at least it was something. In the comics, I think he fared a little bit better. Still appearing sporadically in the original Marvel run, he at least was present during key story arcs, like where he and fellow Cobra operative Scrap Iron are tasked with taking down the Arashikage Ninja Master, the Soft Master, which they successfully do, killing him along with Joe Ripcord's girlfriend Candy Apple and gravely injuring Cobra Commander's son Billy. Later on, he is apparently one of the many suspected traitors buried alive in a landlocked freighter by a returned Cobra Commander. The details are sketchy on why he was included, but this might have been due to either him almost killing the Commander's son, or Hasbro looking to get rid of older characters to make way for newer ones to sell more toys. Anyway, while most of these unfortunate men eventually die inside the freighter, Firefly apparently manages to escape using battle android troopers to dig him out and putting his uniform on the dead body of Serpentor to hide the fact that he survived. And going back to the topic of ninjas, it is later revealed that for better or worse, Firefly himself is a ninja, having been taken in and trained by the Koga Ninja clan at a young age, after the death of his father. He eventually makes his way up the clan ranks and gains master status, taking on the name of Faceless Master. He is also further intertwined into the twisted histories of other prominent characters in the GI Joe franchise, as he is later hired by a man who would later become Cobra Commander to kill Snake Eyes, whom he blamed for his brother's death. But Firefly, seeing that Snake Eyes is above his league, wisely sidesteps and gets the mercenary Zartan to do the deed instead. Zartan, on the other hand, ends up mistakenly killing the Hardmaster, leader of the Rashikage clan, of whom both Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow belong to instead. The fallout of this botched assassination unfortunately falls onto Storm Shadow, who is blamed for his master's/uncle's death, leading him to leave the clan and join Cobra to secretly hunt down the Hardmaster's true killer. So as it turned out, the link between Firefly and Storm Shadow actually went beyond their similar looks and manner of operation. How cool is that? Anyway, 2 more interesting story bits involving Firefly occurred in later comics from other publishers. In the Devil's Due run, which originally was meant to be a continuation of the Marvel series, Firefly resurfaces after the defeat of Cobra and starts recruiting soldiers to build a new army. Duke sends in an elite group of operatives called the Hammer Team to stop him. And for good measure, Snake Eyes is brought in, as well as his apprentice, Ophelia. Unfortunately, the operation goes south and Ophelia and all but one of the Hammer members are killed. The lone surviving member, Sean Collins, eventually becomes Snake Eyes' new apprentice and takes up the name Kamakura. In another story arc, Firefly takes up the new identity of Snake Eater as a member of the new team called the Phoenix Guard that is assembled to essentially replace GI Joe. Of course, this is all a ruse as the entire team is secretly composed of other notable Cobra operatives like Zarana, Wild Weasel, Scrap Iron, and Copperhead, created by the Secretary of State Garrett Friedlow, who in turn turned out to be Cobra Commander himself. And finally, we have IDW, wherein once again Firefly is given a rather short but very interesting spotlight as part of the miniseries Hearts and Minds, written by World War Z author Max Brooks. In this short story, first of all, Firefly is randomly race-swapped into an African American. But that's beside the point. The beauty of this story is that it focuses on his thought processes and methodology behind how he accomplishes his missions of destruction. As per the IDW Hasbro Wiki, while he's certainly not above a more direct approach, Firefly prefers more subtle, surgical methods of doing his job. He knows that the key to a successful sabotage is more than just finding a structurally unsound place to blow up. It's about doing something small that will make the job take care of itself. After all, why go to the trouble of having to sneak around planting bombs when you can exploit a small, subtle flaw in the building's design and have the people inside do it for you? I really think that this short story is definitely worth a read, so I won't spoil anything. But I will say that he manages to bring down an entire building with the simple use of a plastic tube, talk of baseball and politics, and a long-forgotten pneumatic air system that runs all throughout the building. And finally, in what was probably the pinnacle of Firefly's popularity to the general populace, the Cobra Saboteur was brought in as the new major villain of the live-action sequel to The Rise of Cobra, GI Joe Retaliation. In the movie, he is played by the awesome actor Ray Stevenson, rest in peace, who is best known for his memorable roles as Titus Pulo in the HBO series Rome and Star Wars Ahsoka, where he played the mysterious former Jedi turned mercenary Baylan Skoll. Anyway, one interesting bit I read about his role as Firefly was that the original plan was for him to basically go around unmasked throughout the entire movie. I mean, I guess the producers wanted to take full advantage of Mr. Stevenson's distinguished mug. But Stevenson, who was initially not familiar with the character, did his research and became a fan of the original Firefly, and he lobbied to be shown wearing his trademark camouflage mask in some scenes. If only more actors were like Mr. Stevenson, who showed more respect to the source material of the characters that they played, I think the world would be a better place with less fan outreach all around. Anyway, over the years, there have been a respectable number of Firefly action figures released. Mostly good and some, well, you be the judge. Here are a few of my favorites, as well as one that deserves mentioning because it was just so wrong. First, we got the original one that was released in 1984. There's nothing really much to say here except it was a solid debut for a solid character. His accessories were simple, a nice submachine gun, a backpack with a removable panel, nice touch, and a frustratingly easy to lose tiny walkie-talkie. Then, in 1992, in line with his reveal in the comics as a ninja, Hasbro tried to update Firefly's look and unfortunately messed this one up big time. Instead of going down the more traditional route, Hasbro decided to go with what was all the rage in the 90s, neon colors and Ninja Turtles. As a result, we got this snazzy new neon green Firefly, whose eye-catching getup would be just perfect for hiding in the shadows. Cowabunga, dude! Thankfully, for the 25th anniversary of the line in 2007, the original Firefly was back with a few modern updates. The first one, unfortunately, was more of a miss for fans as his camo uniform came out too light and his web gear didn't fit quite right as it looked like it was choking him. Plus, he looked pretty scrawny. They soon released a tweaked version which came out better, with a darker camo palette and new gear including a souped-up backpack with additional tools to blow things up, as well as some infrared goggles. There were a few more versions released after, but all of these were just slight variations or repaints of these first two. Also notable are two versions of Firefly based off his appearance in the later GI Joe cartoon series, Resolute in 2009 and Renegades in 2010. These designs were departures from the original versions, but didn't stray too far off from the classic Firefly elements. They're nice for what they are, but don't really push any real boundaries. Oh well, at least neither of them are green. But speaking of pushing boundaries, the Pursuit of Cobra version of Firefly, released in 2010, sort of reinvents or reinterprets Firefly while still keeping him instantly recognizable. This version builds upon the original concept, giving him a more modern uniform with extra padding and armor for protection from blasts, as well as a working backpack, a couple of mines, and two very unique head sculpts. The first one is closer to the original, except it's no longer a simple cloth mask, but something more solid and defined. The second head is even better as it's a total departure from anything given to him before. With its extended muzzle and bug eyes, this version gives off more of a futuristic sci-fi feel, in a good way, and is definitely one of my favorite versions of Firefly. Next up, we have the live-action versions of Firefly that were inevitably released along with the Retaliation movie. In line with that, we get two more notable ones. The first is a slight departure from the original recipe. In what I guess could be seen as a callback to his horrible 90s update, it sports a green jacket that luckily isn't neon, so I'll let that slide. It's got a nice painted design on the back, and a definite plus is that it comes with a Ray Stevenson head sculpt that for its time is pretty decent. The second one brings us back full circle, as it's basically a redo of the original 1984 Firefly, except this time done right. Unlike the 25th anniversary version, this one is the right shade of gray and has perfectly fitting web gear. It's almost perfect, as the head sculpt could have been more detailed in my opinion, but you can't win them all, I guess. Anyway, finally we have two more Fireflies in the larger 1/12 scale as part of the modern classified line. And speaking of modern, that seems to be what Hasbro was going for with their first attempt at the Saboteur for the line. It's pretty nice with updated gear and weapons, most notably a rather thick armored vest, reminiscent of the Pursuit of Cobra version, and a personal flying drone. Ultimately though, I find it to be rather bulky and awkward. Fortunately, Hasbro didn't let too much time go by before they released an improved, more back-to-basics 2.0 version that was a lot closer to the original vintage design. Now, I myself don't collect GI Joe classifieds yet, but if I do end up falling down that rabbit hole, I'm pretty sure that this guy will be one of my first purchases. And that should be it for the Cobra Saboteur, later turned Ninja Firefly. At the end of the day, while I don't think he reached the same heights of popularity as Storm Shadow, or even the Baroness and Zartan who both came out the same year, I don't think he did pretty bad for himself, and I believe that Firefly has managed to maintain a low-key cult following, of which I am proudly a member of. So are there any other fellow members of the Firefly fan club out there? Let me know in the comments below and tell me your story. Thanks for watching Stories from the Toy Shelf. If you enjoyed this story, why not check another one? And please help me out by giving me a like or comment, and subscribe to the channel to get notifications whenever I upload a new story. Until the next one,